October 28th, 1997. Or 98, I don't actually remember exactly. I awoke on that anniversary of my existence and sleepily made my way downstairs, where I was greeted with a big, colorfully wrapped birthday present sitting on the kitchen table. Upon tearing through the paper that confined my gift, I was ecstatic to learn that waiting underneath was a Nintendo 64 game console and a copy of Super Mario 64. While these pictures don't do a great job of illustrating it, rest assured, my excitement levels could have easily rivaled those of this kid. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't able to enjoy my new hardware immediately because I was forced to go to that big, dumb, stupid place where all the learning was. But my annoyance was quelled because my dad promised to have the system all hooked up, ready to go, and waiting for me when I got back home. And even though the layout of my room meant the only place he could comfortably put it at the time was inside a pulled-out desk drawer, he kept his promise, allowing me to start the first of what would be many hours jumping around Princess Peach's castle. I actually still own that same N64 and copy of Super Mario to this day, hooked up and ready to go right next to all my modern-day consoles. That's not the first memory I have of my father when it comes to gaming, but it's definitely one of the most vivid. Another memory I can clearly recall is tied to another N64 game. I had been dragged along to some kind of social gathering at a house, I don't remember what it was exactly, and while my parents stood around talking about whatever was relevant in 1998,
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
All of the kids huddled into a small bedroom where the son of the host started playing this shooter game I had never seen before. No multiplayer or anything, just showing us various levels. I was immediately captivated. It was so cool and fun to watch that on the car ride back home, I couldn't stop telling my dad about how awesome what I had seen was. Flash forward to several weeks later, and I'm attending a friend's birthday party at some local batting cages. As things wound down and parents started arriving to pick up their offspring, my dad walked in, and out of the blue, in his hands, was a brand new mint inbox copy of GoldenEye. I'm pretty sure I ran around to all the kids still at the party to brag about my new game, which, in retrospect, was totally stealing the birthday boy's thunder. But screw that kid, I got GoldenEye! And like Mario 64, I went on to spend countless hours with that game, mowing down a bunch of static-faced bad guys with what my sister and I referred to as the pencil gun. It's dawned on me at this point that all the video game stories I've shared about my dad so far have revolved around him buying me stuff, and that probably comes across as somewhat shallow, so let's switch gears. One thing I liked to do as a kid was show my dad various aspects of a new game I got. If I thought something was cool or came across some scene I thought he'd appreciate, I'd stop what I was doing to run and go get him and ask him to come watch me play, and every single time, without fail, he would. In this regard, the PS1 classic Metal Gear Solid comes to mind. I played through that game more times than I can count, and one of the bonuses you unlock after doing so was a theater mode, letting you witness the story of MGS as a movie. Since I loved the story and characters of the game and wanted to share it with my dad, I hooked up the console to the living room TV and basically made a movie night out of it as we watched a weird, stylish, melodramatic action spy thriller. I also remember Dead to Rights. When you booted up that game, an action-packed intro cinematic played, one that is admittedly still fun to watch now. My dad liked it too, but given his occupation as a police officer, he tended to notice and pick out details that were out of place or inconsistent. For example, he informed me that bullets do not turn like this when cycled into the chamber, fire extinguishers do not in fact explode into a fireball when shot, our hero's arms flying up after each trigger pull is insanely exaggerated, and the time left on the bomb during the climactic final encounter keeps changing between shots. If you've ever wondered where I got my ability to nitpick from, you should have a better idea now. There was also this time where he walked in on me while I was doing this strip club distraction minigame, and the look on his face clearly said, this was a bad parenting decision. He still let me play it though. The original Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. I loved this game. Admittedly, it was confusing at first for my underdeveloped child brain. But eventually I got the hang of it, and watching a plan that I had meticulously laid out come together, it was so satisfying. So satisfying, in fact, that after each and every mission, I would bolt away from the computer, sprint downstairs, and tell my dad all about it. I'd be like, And then I told Bravo Team to hold position, and then Alpha Team almost got spotted, but I managed to shoot the terrorist man before he hurt the hostage and blah 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 blah. While he just smiled, indulged my enthusiastic rambling, and nodded along. Free tip, don't play Rainbow Six while you're on Ritalin. Of course, as a preteen in the early 2000s, I was playing the hell out of some Grand Theft Auto. Another A-plus decision on the part of my parents. I was playing Vice City on PS2, and one of the things you can do in that game is buy various pieces of real estate, and one of the businesses you can buy is called the Cherry Popper Ice Cream Company. Now at the time, I was too young to get that joke and just took the name at face value, but my older sister knew what it meant, and she remarked how funny it was. When I innocently asked why, she said what every elder sibling says when asked about something potentially embarrassing. You should go ask Dad.
Pretty sneaky, sis.
So that night, when the family gathered around the dinner table for a nice home-cooked meal, the first thing I said to my father was, "What does cherry popper mean?" You ever seen a deer in headlights? To his credit, he told me what it meant. I mean, he wasn't one to bullshit his kids, even when he probably should have. And if you're watching this and you don't know what cherry popping means, go ask your parents. My dad taught me the definition of foobar when I was showing him the Thing video game based on the John Carpenter movie. He expressed to me how fascinating it was that people could spend so much time managing the lives of virtual people in The Sims. He joked about how easy it would be to get away with murder if dead bodies just flickered and disappeared. He marveled at the cutscenes of Final Fantasy VIII, while also wondering why the in-game graphics were such a step down. I often wonder what he would think if he could see the photorealistic graphics we've managed to achieve today. There are a lot of good memories I have surrounding my dad and this medium I've dedicated my time to. He took interest in this hobby I fell in love with because he knew how passionate I was about it. He was always willing to sit down and let me share my experiences while he talked about how impressed he was by the technology of the time and asked questions about what I was playing whenever he was curious. Undeniably, video games were an integral part of our bond, and I'm happy that I have those years to look back on. Unfortunately, in 2004, my dad got sick. And he never got better. But weirdly enough, even that personal tragedy has a tangential association with gaming in my mind. Bear with me, because I'm about to take a sharp left turn into dark humor territory, so strap in. Back in the day, there was a short-lived MTV program called Video Mods. The whole gimmick of the show was that they would take assets from whatever video game would let them and create original music videos to popular songs of the time. I'm mentioning this because Video Mods is what I was watching when I was told that my father had passed away. Let me set the scene for you. I'm watching television in my parents' room because parents always have the nicer television, and my mom comes in and tells me that my dad had died. Now, if you've ever received news like that, you know it's not something you react to right away. You kind of have to process that life-changing information for a while before it sinks in. So I'm sitting there just staring at a spot on the floor, thinking about the news I'd received. And in that moment of sadness and silent self-reflection, this comes blaring out of the TV.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.
I didn't really appreciate the comedy of it in the moment, but looking back, I find this wildly inappropriate juxtaposition to be fucking hilarious. And that is also why I will forever associate my father's death with the Black Eyed Peas. Of course, after this low point in my life, I kept right on playing video games. If anything, I probably played them more, as I certainly needed the distraction. But for a while, whenever I held a controller in my hand, there was an undeniable feeling that something was missing. For quite a few months after everything happened, I'd see something awesome in a game, or skillfully make my way through a particular sequence, and my immediate thought would be, I need to go get Dad and show him this, only to be met with the crippling realization that I couldn't do that anymore. Eventually, that feeling passed, and while it goes without saying that I would have greatly preferred him being around for longer so I could share another Super Mario, Metal Gear, or Rainbow Six with him, as the years have gone by, I've grown to appreciate and cherish the memories we did get to have, to the point where I felt inspired to share some of them here with all of you. While writing this video, I actually wondered if maybe on some subconscious level, my desire to talk about video games on YouTube or stream my subpar play performance on Twitch was born from those early days of excitedly showing my dad stuff as a kid. I'm not willing to say for sure if that's the case one way or the other. I could very well just be reading too much into things, but on a day like today, I'd like to think they're connected, at least in some small fashion. By now, some of you are probably wondering what the ultimate purpose of this video was, and no, it's not to bum you out or to accrue pity points. Trust me, I've acquired more than enough of those over the years. Aside from an admittedly selfish desire to share my dumb little stories, I also wanted to take this time to impart some very simple, very basic wisdom. Odds are pretty good that if you're watching my content, you play a lot of video games. And if you're anything like me, you tend to do so alone. And while there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, I would encourage, at least from time to time, letting someone else in on this hobby you're passionate about. I focused on my dad, but it doesn't have to be him. It could be your mom, brother, sister, cousin, friend, significant other. It doesn't matter. Show them a bombastic set piece in your favorite action game, or sit them down and have them help you through a difficult puzzler, or hand them a controller yourself and yell at each other while you play a party game. It might not seem like much at the time, but I promise you that if anything ever gets between you and that person, whether it be a tragedy or simply because you lose touch, whenever you think of them or go to replay that game that you shared, all of those memories will come flooding back, and they're bound to bring a smile to your face. And while given the nature of my channel, I've focused on video games, this can apply to anything, any medium or any hobby that you enjoy. Heck, I can still remember the last movie my dad and I saw in theaters together, and the last television show that we eagerly awaited watching each week. Whatever it is, with whoever it is, share your experiences and build your memories. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to me and support what I do. And to anyone that this applies to, have a happy Father's Day.